I'll start recording now. So that measurements box in the corner will get its measurements based off of how we set our drawing up. If we set it up in inches and feet, then when you type in 14 inches, it does inches. When you type in 14 feet, it does feet. But if you just type the number 14, it depends because there's two ways you could set up. You could do inches and feet or feet inches, and you could reverse the measurements. So you'll notice, let's see what this one is right now. I kind of just started this one from scratch last night, but I'm assuming it's going to be inches. So if I just type in 14, enter, with nothing attached to it, I know we've talked about adding the inches and then the foot mark, it's going to give me 14 inches. And it intuits that's what I want because I set my drawing up that way. Okay. You also can change your mind as long as you do not hit anything after hitting enter. So let's go ahead and draw a line again. I'm drawing my line and I want it to be 2 foot, enter. But I didn't click anything and then I quickly decide, no, I want it to be 4 foot, enter. Notice I didn't have to redraw the line or delete it at all because I hadn't made my mind up and started clicking into another tool, so it allows me to just change the size of that as I'm thinking. Maybe I'm conceptualizing about a circle and I want it to have a certain type of radius, so I say 6 inches, enter. But I'm like, oh, that's way too small, maybe 9 inches, enter. So it's more of sketching in live time, and it's very helpful, and it's a lot smarter than AutoCAD in that way. Okay, so that again is called context sensitive. Let's see, other things that you might want to learn about before we move on to complex things like stairs. Shift to select multiple things, Control, Copy, and Command C. So I have covered these things, but we're just going to cover them a little bit again. I don't think I've really touched on Shift as much as I could have. So for example, if I was to come up to the top and grab my selection arrow, and this I have as a group currently, I could either think of my Shift button, it adds or subtracts things from my selection. So if I hold Shift now and then I select this, I now have both of those things selected. I could keep clicking on things, so I have these two things. This wasn't a group, so I have those things and the face. Now when I move them, they all move together. Now granted, the one that was in a group is going to do the crazy stickiness, but that's one way you could select multiple objects to move them, is by holding Shift. Shift, while in that case selected to add things, I could also hold Shift but I have to be in my selection tool. So then I hold Shift from there and get rid of them. So I'm back to just having my individual first object I started with. So Shift is useful, and it could be inside a group as well. It doesn't have to be selecting only groups. I could come in, if I only want to paint this side, this side, this side, now I've selected them. Oh no, not that one. I can unselect it. So I'm simply holding the Shift button, clicking with my mouse on the faces that I want. Now notice I'm only getting the faces in this case because they're not groups, so I haven't added the lines. I have to go in and individually click the lines if I want them. I'm just selecting with Shift individual pieces. Now, just like AutoCAD, and I encountered this the other day because I think some of you are so in the AutoCAD mindset that you've been used to selection windows. So I'm sure now that you've worked on your own, you found this out, but if not, there's 100 ways to do something. I had a student last night, and they actually call them what we call them in AutoCAD. So there's a selection window or there's a crossing window. So the selection window is left to right, like this. And when you're using that, it's going to give us only the whole object if we select it all. So in this case, I selected everything. But when I use the selection window and I only choose half of it, it only chooses the one line. The only time that going from left to right is going to give me the whole object is if that box encompasses everything inside. That's the exact same as AutoCAD. The same is true of if I use the other side and I go from right to left, okay, so that's our crossing window. So right to left, I'm pulling down, And yes, it selected everything because I selected everything, but if I was to come in, now notice anything that touches, it's selecting. So that works just like AutoCAD. You could use the keyboard and do Shift to add different things, or if you want to, you could come in using a crossing window, which selects the things it touches, or you could use your selection window, which only selects the things that it completely encompasses, or the first thing that it completely encompasses. So that's just some options for selecting things that I thought was a good correlation between SketchUp and AutoCAD. Okay, so I want to be clear, as I've been working with some of you on your homework help, that I say this to everyone else. Moving things can be simple. It can also be very hard. I'm sure you've been struggling with floating furniture, and it's easy for me to say, oh yeah, just move that, no problem. Well, what makes it easier, remember, is to constantly be reminded about your inference points. So if I come in with my mouse and I select this, if I want to move this whole object, I do not want to grab the move tool and pick an arbitrary face point because it gives me this weird line that's trying to find an axis. It's much easier to use a corner point that snaps more so automatically to an axis and gives me a clear idea of pulling out to see my green line, pulling up to see my blue. It's always clearer to grab a nice corner than it is to pick any point on your face. I guarantee you will have trouble if you just pick a random spot within this space or within the space of this. So let's stick with our corners. Something else that I had the opportunity to show a student last night, and really I'd say my husband did because he does things differently than me in SketchUp. He's a graphic designer, but he wanted to remind me that it can be really frustrating to use your rotate tool. So when I come in here, sometimes it's not as straightforward. Notice I snap to the face, so that was really easy. I'll just rotate it this way. Or if it's simple like this, but sometimes it's not so simple. It could be a sofa that has rounded edges, or it gets kind of confusing as you're going where you're grabbing. Another way to move things and get these axes, but with more pick points, is to actually use the move tool to rotate. And that's what these beautiful red plus symbols are. So they're giving you kind of more dynamic opportunities to grab your object and rotate it. So now it's locking onto that axis and I could flip it upside down. Or, let me undo that. Okay. If I went through and I wanted to have the bottom, it's kind of different with this shape. You can see the points available to me on the top to flip it that way. So they're just more of a handle than you have when you simply use the rotate tool. Here I'm just hoping that I snap to the face and find a good point. It looks easy with these rectilinear shapes, but it's a lot harder with rounder, smoother shapes. Okay, so there's just another way to do it. Again, that was we used the move tool, and by hovering, the red points come up, allowing us to pick a rotate option. I rotate and I click to finish it. All right, other things to cover. Move tool for modeling. Okay, so one second. I have a couple examples of shapes over here that show the differences in your move tool for modeling. You don't always have to build 100 shapes and stack them to get your model to do what you want to do, but you do need to know the differences in what happens when you pick certain parts of your model. So for us, I'm going to show the difference between picking a face on here and using the move tool and picking an edge. So if I pick the face to move, we get this shape, which might not be anything I want unless I'm building a lean-to, which is great. Then I already have that set up and ready to go. If we pick the edge, we get a beautiful house shape. And I can hold Shift. And as you see, I'm holding Shift and it's making that blue axis sticky, making that line a lot easier for me to snap onto. While I'm in here and I'm moving some stuff around, you can also use your keyboard tool to help direct you with your lines. So I hit left and it gave me the green axis. If I hit right, it'll start trying to push towards the back. If I hit up, it gives me the blue axis. And if I hit down, it'll help to select a down arrow. So they can kind of direct you. They're not foolproof, but it does give you something. Someone asked me for snaps, or is there a way to better move something? That's a good way. And it is kind of locked in right now. It wants to stick to that line. So instead of having complete freedom, it's giving me a reference point to move. Now I have freedom again. I turned off the keyboards. But there's how you would do a house. So just knowing what's going to happen with your geometry when you're pulling on it. A face is going to pull up this whole side. This is going to pull up the entire center of your box. So I think those are good things to think about. The other thing to think about, and I think I had a good page in one of my own personal books I wanted to read from. Let me see. Yep, page 49. Geometry can get kind of confusing. Specifically, Google SketchUp doesn't like what they call folds. So that would be if you were going to move this up and then start pulling it to the side. It's not going to like that you're pulling geometry out of other geometry, and it's going to get confused on how you want to use it. So I'm going to read from page 49 in my book really quick. Using auto fold. So it says, this will happen to you sooner or later when you're using SketchUp. You'll be trying to move a vertex on an edge or a face, and you won't be able to go in the direction you want. SketchUp doesn't like to let you create folds when extra faces and edges are created in place of a single face. Okay? So with the move tool, so it constrains your movements to the directions that you won't end up adding them. If SketchUp won't let you move whatever you're trying to move, force it to do so by doing one very important thing, pressing and holding down Alt or Command on a Mac, for my Mac users, while you're moving. When you do this, you're telling SketchUp that it is okay to proceed, in other words, to create folds if it has to. So we'll see the difference between me using the Move tool on here. So here's right now, it's not wanting to add any geometry when I use the Move tool. But then my book instructs me to either hold Alt, because I want to actually do something with this interior face, or to do Command on a Mac. So if I hold Alt and move it, now it's allowing me to create folds in my box, or create a nice roof to my house that it wasn't allowing before. So some of you have probably been struggling with that, where you've been snapping a box to the top, a rectangle, and hoping it become two separate shapes, but instead it ended up being like, nope, you're just going to move the rectangle wherever you want to move it to. So Alt is the answer to correcting that issue. Okay. So I'm going to move on now and talk about a little bit what I've uploaded to the class. If I have it open still. I think in Chrome I do. Okay. So for this week, I kind of held off on your quiz because I had two quizzes again set up in case we get to one part of the class or we don't, and then I'll turn on the one that you need when the time comes tomorrow. But I'm hoping to get to stairs, multiple types of stairs and components, and also start talking about parallel projection and creating section drawings and exporting to CAD. Okay, so if I go into my AutoCAD class and I go to class sessions and pick session 10, extra videos. I got a little crazy this week, but I think that I'm hearing positive feedback from trying the extra videos, so why not? So I have details, 3 views explained. This is kind of prep for next week, or if we get a little bit into it this week. It talks about how in AutoCAD I always drew my section drawing to the side by pulling the lines off of the plan to create that view. This talks about doing that, but in a smaller scale, for instance, with the different sides of a cabinet and creating a detail drawing. Or if you were going to do, I think my options are going to be a stair a mantle, and a piece of cabinetry that I'll eventually have you do your detail drawings for. Stair duplication. I'm going to talk about this in class, but they cover it a little bit differently, so this is a good option. I did say besides the fact he's using meters and not inches, but use your imagination. It really is the same tools, even though it's not the same measurements. What are dynamic components? This one is a really great explanation, and I almost wish we could watch it, but I know we have sound issues, so please do watch this video. It's only like a minute long, and it explains dynamic components brilliantly. Stairs and creating a dynamic component. We do not have the time to go into the real details of creating dynamic components. I would not consider that basic SketchUp. I'd consider it extremely advanced SketchUp. We'll talk about what they are and how they work, but creating them just takes more time than we have, and I'm more interested to see that you understand a stair, the risers, the treads, and the runs. So we'll focus on the easy, but I will show you how to use and download your own dynamic stairs and give you the video if you wanted to create your dynamic stair. Figuring the rise and run. This is just a useful video for understanding stairs. I know some of you are in 108 or maybe have had another class or experience with stairs and how we create them, but it explains brilliantly the Pythagorean theorem and thinking about how the stringer of your stairs, which is the topmost angle, is figured out by knowing the height and width of your stairs. So we might watch this video together later without the volume on because I really just need the visual. And understanding stringer size, same thing. These are both just good ones on stairs and component options. So a lot of stuff based off of what we're doing in class, some more advanced and some just a better understanding. All right. So in my model here, and let me make sure that I also have my book open in case I don't want to miss anything they have something to add on to. 1 second. Parallel projection. Okay. So first I want to read something from page 111 on stairs, because I could easily teach you how to build a stair, but if you never know why you're building a stair, it's not going to make any sense to you. So I'm going to read you just information, basic information on stairs. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at these. They're kind of funny, but it will help us to understand it. So with our stairs, we have the rise. So this is the riser of my stair. And then I have the run of my stair, which is basically the tread. And these are the rise and runs of each individual stair. But then if I eventually, I'll have, and maybe we could look at a real stair, that might be even more helpful. I'll have an overall rise and an overall run of my staircase that tells me the height and width that it needs to be in order to get from up here to down to the flat part of the ground that I'm trying to get to. So it says the rise and run. The rise is the total distance your staircase needs to climb. If the vertical distance from your first floor to your second floor is 10 feet, that's your rise. So that was this line right in here. From here to the ground is our 10-foot rise. It says the run is the total horizontal distance that your staircase takes up. So here's our run from here to here. Back to the corner is my run. The tread. A tread is an individual step. So that's where we're stepping with our foot. We want to stand on the tread. It's the part of the staircase you step on. When people refer to the size of the tread, they're talking about the tread's depth. So front to back, the depth of the tread is the size of the tread, or the distance from the front to back of the tread. Typically, this is anywhere from 9 to 24 inches. So there are code rules on stairs, and they're saying the majority of the time a tread could be either a smaller stair that's 9 inches, or it could go all the way up to 24 inches. Then it says treads 10 to 12 inches are most comfortable to walk on. So that is the rule of thumb that you'll learn in other classes here is 10 to 12 inches are what we're looking for as a comfortable stair that you're really used to, that your mind every day when we go upstairs, that's the standard. Other things would cause tripping hazards or just not good muscle memory. So 10 to 12 inches is what we're going to stick with in our drawings. Riser. The riser is the part of the step that connects each tread. So here's our riser. And it says they're usually around 5 to 7 inches. But it says not all staircases have actual risers, thinks of steps with gaps between the treads, but they all have a riser height. So even if there was, this was only an inch thick and it was floating with some supports behind it, you still have this overall riser height that you're accounting for, and that's what's intended by the riser. And then there's a landing, and it says a landing is a platform somewhere around the middle of the set of stairs. So it could be the top landing, or it could be in this area out here, but we don't have a landing physically in ours. It says modeling them can be a real pain. Figuring out staircases with landings is more definitely complicated, and it's something that is hard to think about. That's actually what my book says. So lucky for us, we have a straight staircase and we're in basic SketchUp, and we're just going to focus today on the different types of stairs that you can have. So I have two basic beginner types that I'm going to show and one that I'll bring up later and I'll show you on the screen. But on my screen right now, these two showcase the subdivided rectangle method. And what I'm going to be working with and you're going to be working with in your homework is, let me pull it up. I'll find your rubric. Nope, wrong class. So if I go to Google Docs, there it is. Okay. I wonder if it'll let me view it. Okay. Aw, man. I don't have it. Hold on. I do have it, just not here. I want to make sure that you can see it on the screen and not just in front of me. So measurements box. Okay. This is the information that I'm giving you on your rubric. So it says specifically that there's number of rise 20, number of run is 19. My riser is 6 inches tall. And then it says total run is 15 feet, 10 inches. Now, how did I arrive at all of this? I actually used, I think this is the one I used. So if I go into here and I have a new tab, backspace, Control V. There's lots of tools available to you on the internet, and it is trustworthy. I actually tested the math. I believe this is the one I used. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see what happens. 10 foot was, in reality, the size of my staircase height that I ended up wanting. And I figured that out by going into our SketchUp boathouse model and kind of looking at what they had set up, or I had set up, sorry, and measuring what I thought it needed to be. And then I found that my stairs were a little small, but the height was, in fact, 10 feet. So I would put the height, which was looking at our model. Dun, dun, dun. So slow. And we'll zoom in. See if it loads my stair. Okay. Okay. So that was from the top of here all the way to the ground. That's what I wanted to be my 10 foot as my rise. I'm going to close out of this and just get into Chrome. Okay, and then my run, this was talking about and here's the picture that helps you. Actually, I should have just looked over here. My mind was blanking. So total rise, the 10-foot high, but run, they're just talking about individual run. So I did, in fact, want this to be 10 inches, so I was fine because we had decided that from our book, it says 10 to 12 inches is regular. So then I clicked calculate. And it gave me a ton of options. Now, I personally wanted a nice round number because I didn't want to have to deal with the decimal as I was drawing. So I scrolled down and it's telling you what happens if you want 12 runs, 13 runs. It's increasing the number of runs as you go, and then it's telling you how that's affecting your rises. So I wanted to have a nice even number, so I came down and found the information of for 10 foot, I'm going to have my risers be 6 inches, and the number of them is going to be 20, and the number of runs is going to be 19. And then I knew that my actual tread was 10 inches. So all I would need to do is take all of that information and plug it into drawing my model. So if you were going to do the subdivided rectangle method, and I think I did these even before I started, I can check it by measuring my line, but I might draw one from scratch once I get it all rotated. Okay. Sorry for my slow computer as it's adjusting. Okay, so I'll bring up my Google information. And my stair calculator. Okay, so we did 10 foot high, and then we ended up doing, it says the total run is 15 foot 10 inches. So that is going to end up being this, from this point to this point. So I need to draw that as a rectangle. So it's going to be 15 foot 10, and I could use the rectangle tool or I could use the pencil tool. So either way, if I use the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to assume that I want my width to be 36 inches for a staircase. It could be 36 to 48 inches, but I'll start pulling it, and I'm going to say I want 15 foot 10 inches. Oop, I got a weird symbol in there. And then comma 36 inches and enter. Okay, so there I have the start of drawing my stairs. But then I also know that I want my height to be 10 foot. So notice I started off on the green axis, but I'm going up. So I want to make sure it's snapped to that blue axis. And then I'll type in 10 foot, enter. Okay, so now I have this rectangle down here and it's not divided at all. And then I also have the height of my stair. Now, in order to do the subdivided method, you have to know the individual tread for each, which we know is going to be 10 inches. So what I can do is actually go ahead and divide my line up. Now, the easiest way to do this is to come through with your select tool and select one of the outside lines. It doesn't matter which one. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to say divide. And then if you notice as I pull to the left, there's a bunch of little points that are showing up. And if you notice in the bottom right hand corner, it's giving me an option for how many segments I want to do. Okay, so for me, I actually want to do, let's look back at our Google really quick. it says that there are, for the 6 inches, number of runs 19. Okay, so I want this number to be 19, and I can hit enter, and it should work. Let me make sure. 19. Oh, it's not typing for some reason. I should be able to type it. I don't know if it's just because my mouse is moving. Well, then for now I'll drag it, but you can indeed type it. Just know that you can when you go to do it yourself. So it looks like nothing on our line has changed, but in reality it has been broken up into segments. Okay? So the long drawn out method of doing this, you can see I have a few pick points. I have my first outer end point, and as I'm dragging along, I get a midpoint, and then I'll get another end point, and that gives me my first 19 inches. Okay, so I could spend my whole life, sorry, I have a very dry sense of humor and just a way about me, so I don't always mean to be this way, but I could spend quite a while going through and snapping to all of these points to draw my lines and make sure that they're accurate. Now look, it's snapping up, which I don't want it to do. I want it to be on the green line. So I'll pull it out to the side. And, oh, look, it was doing something wrong. I didn't make sure I was on the right axis. So let's go back a step. So if I find my first endpoint, and there, now I'm on the green axis. That's correct. Okay, so then if I come back through and find my next green dot and go back on the green axis, then I should be straight again. And it didn't look straight. Again, SketchUp is right, our mind is wrong. It looked really weird, but it was working. Okay, so that's created 1, 2 of my treads or my run going across. But when I look back and we said that I want 19 of them, I could either draw a billion lines, or there's another way to use your move tool to copy things. So this is a couple of steps, but it will save you time in the long run. So what you're going to do is you're going to come up to your selection tool, and you're going to select this first line. And actually, no, let's select this one because we've already drawn in this space. So select the second line. It could have been the first one if we had not drawn this line. So I have it selected. Then from there, I'm going to click my move tool, and I'm going to pick the end point down here and hold Control. Now notice it's copying my line. I'm going to pull it over to the next 19-inch mark endpoint and click. Now without clicking anything else, notice my bottom right-hand corner in the length box. I'm going to type Shift and on my keyboard it's 8 to give me the asterisk symbol. And then I'm going to type in, so let's see, I had 2 already. I'm going to want 19 minus 2, which is 17. So I'll type in 17 and hit enter. And it tiles out all of those lines for me by copying them. So that's just a keyboard shortcut that can save you a lot of time. All right, so I'm going to undo that and do it one more time to show you. We'll do it for a different type of geometry later, but I'll show you the tool again. So I already had these 2 lines. I knew from my math that I need 19 overall rectangles like this. So if I was going to pick this line and continue to draw rectangles, I'd grab my select tool. I select the line. Then I come up and I click the move tool, and I find the end point of my line, and I click that, and I hit Control and see the plus button next to my move tool, and I start dragging over until I click on to my next 19-inch point, and I left click there. Now I hit Shift the number 8 on my keyboard. I don't know what it is for Mac users. And that gives me the asterisk symbol, which is what I'm looking for. I know I want 17 more rectangles because I have 2 of the 19, so I type 17 and hit enter. And it tiles in the rest of my stairs. So that's just the start to one method of drawing your stairs, but the next part of that is we want to get the different levels of our stairs. So we have to come in and divide the height, which we know needs to be divided into measurements of 6 inches because that's our rise. So if I come through and I use my select tool and I click on my line and I right click and click divide, I should be able to type in 6 inches, but wait, I don't want to type that in. I actually want to divide my line up into, because I'm cheating. Last night I was trying to find the easiest way. I could have done 6 inches, 6 inches, and drawn it all the way up and copied it. That would be one way to do it. Or if we go back and we look at how many numbers of rise we have 19 going up. So we want to divide this line into 19. So I right click, then select divide, and then I can type in, hopefully just type in 19, and it should have divided our line into 19 little segments. Perfect. See, I told you you could type it in. I was not lying to you guys. So now we have these segments. It's easier in the subdivided rectangle option of a staircase to start with the closest to your overall rise and pull up and then go forward. So I'm going to grab the push-pull tool and I'm going to snap it to the farthest point. Then I'm going to grab the push-pull tool and I'm going to find my 6-inch point. Now notice that says midpoint, so that's not it. This is truly 6 inches. So it's always the next green dot, and snap to that. And I could do this a billion times too. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with practicing this. I don't mind if you spend all that time. It's just up to you if you want to memorize the keyboard shortcut or not, or even just practice this once and then do it another way. That's good practice as well. So now we've drawn the stair this way, but there is another cheat that can go along with this version of our stairs. Okay, so last night when I was looking at it and I finally discovered not only could I divide, which I always knew I could do, but I could copy a bunch of segments at once. I thought, why couldn't I copy a face and do that multiple times so that I could complete the rest of these stairs without pulling these down? And now that I have some type of instance to snap to, it'll all make sense to do that. So what you have to, I think the difficult part of the tool is understanding what you already did, so in this instance I knew I had drawn 2 and I needed 19 to copy. How many copies do I want to make, and how do I want to control the tool so that it remembers what I did to create the next copy? And I'll show you what I mean. When it's just a line going straight, it doesn't seem like SketchUp was thinking very hard. But then when it's like this, you can actually have it follow your movement of knowing that you're changing a height adjustment. So if I come up here to my select tool and I select this first face, and actually I'm going to go ahead and double click to make just that face a group so it's nice and clean. Make it a group. Okay, then I know that I want to have, what did we say, 19 of these actual rises. So if I take this group and then I come to my move tool and I select the endpoint just like I did with my flat lines earlier, and I select that and hold Control, and I then move it down to this front corner because that's where I would not want the next step to be. So holding Control, I click to here. Then I let go after clicking, and then I type Shift, the number 8 to give me my asterisk symbol, and then I type in 19 and hit Enter. It fills in the rest of the stairs for me all the way to the bottom. All right, so that would be one workaround. Now notice I made all of these groups, which was great. That was more just to show you, instead of just copying a face which could get all sticky, that you could make them groups and they're easy to work with. But there's also components. Now we've talked about the difference between a group and a component is that a group is just to make geometry separate from everything else so that it's safe when we're working on it, but a component duplicates itself. So if I had actually made one of these groups a component before I did this, it would function differently. Now if I was to come in here with my select tool and double click on this stair and push pull it and do 6 inches, and then I get out of it by selecting out. I've only changed the one stair and it's not very helpful to me. But if I would have been smart about it from the beginning, and we're going to have to edit undo a couple times to get back there, undo array. So I would want to actually come in and grab my step and double click it so I have the face of it, make it a group, and then make it a component on top of being a group. So now it's a group, but it's also a component. Then if I go through, and I actually made the wrong one because there's nothing to snap to, so I'm going to have to quickly give it some geometry to figure out where it is in space. And this is just good to remind you how I got these stairs if I was doing it your way. Snap to the next screen point. Okay. So then I know I have 1, 2 of my 19 that I want. I believe it is 19. I always confuse the numbers. Yep. Rises is 19. So I actually want to have 17, and it might be 18 because there's a tricky thing about the top step, but for now let's just say 17. So if I come through and I grab that with the selection tool, the one that is now a group and it had a thicker line to it, and then I do my move tool, I click to the corner, I hold control, I click to the next corner of the front step, and then I hit shift 8, which is asterisk, and then I type in 17, enter. That looks like it did about the same thing, which isn't useful to me. I just went through this. But then if I come through with my selection tool and I double click one of the stairs and I pull it down 6 inches, it actually creates all of my steps at once. And now I have a floating staircase, which would be more useful to me than having all of that filled in underneath it. All right, so it turns out I did have one extra step here at the bottom that I was filling in. So I would have wanted to do 18 because I wasn't taking into account that we're coming up to this flat surface. But that is one way to create your stair. Okay, well really two. One way is just to keep pushing, pulling until you get to the end, and then 2 is to use move copy to create this nice floating staircase. Okay, so let's talk about for your homework. If you know this and you know your overall height and your constraints and you copied too many like I did, you could just delete off the last stair. But we do know that our rise is right, and if we use our measure tool, I'm at my 10 feet. Yep, and then I'm at my 15 foot 10, and so that creates the stairs that give me the risers being 10 and my treads being 6, and then it has a little gap because I didn't select it earlier up here to make sure that it was snapping correctly. But that's okay. It's really close enough for what I'm trying to teach you today. We're going to edit these before we do our actual section drawings. But I think that's a lot of information for you so far in the first 2 methods of the stairs. So for your homework, you're going to want to practice those different tools. On top of those tools, we're going to look at another method of creating the stairs over here. Okay, so this is a nice completed method. I have my overall, I think I did this, 15 foot 10, and then my 10 foot tall up here. And I knew that just like we had certain information before, my rise my riser was 6 inches and my tread was 10. So let's see if that's correct. 6 and then 10. Okay. So if I was doing it from scratch, and we could even do it on the other side, why not? For my homework, I'm going to get to a nice blank side, and I don't know if it's throwing you off a little bit because I know I'm all over the place in my axes on my drawing, but it doesn't affect my mind as much. If you want to view something more as flat space, and we'll talk more about this as we do our detailed drawings, you could adjust your camera view. So you've got to figure out what's top, bottom, front, back. So let's see in space with just guessing, I'll guess front, and I was lucky that I guessed correctly. And then I'm going to put parallel projection is on, okay? So now it's flat, and then if I zoom in from this corner and I start drawing up, I could do 6 inches, then over 10 inches, then up 6 inches, then over 10 inches. Oh, we don't like that. That was like 10 billion inches. All right, then over 10, whoop, 1, 0, 1, 0 inches. My gosh. And I could do that all the way to the top, which feel free to do that. I'm not against it. But I could also use the other tool that I've been trying to get you to use tonight by using the selection and the move to create kind of a copy of what we've already done. So what I'm going to do is I now have, and this is where it's better to see it this way and think about I have one riser or 2 risers and then what I have left. So hopefully the math will work out this time for us. And if not, I might be leaving out a detail, which we'll cover. We have plenty of time. So if I come in here and I've created these, the next step would be to copy an entire riser and an entire tread up. So what I'm going to do is grab my selection tool, and I'm going to use another tool that I talked about earlier. I'm going to hit shift, so I only have those 2 lines selected. Then I'm going to use my move tool. I click it. I click the point that I'm moving from to where I want to end up. So I click here and then hit control, and I'm not clicking, I'm just dragging. Then I click to where I want it to end up. Now I'm going to type in shift asterisk, and I had 2, and so I'm going to type in 17 and hit enter. And that gives me the stairs to get me up to the top. And this is the one where it did, see how it did that correctly, because then my landing is up at the top up here. It'd be one riser more to the landing, which gets me to the top, and that's how I would like it. So this is the other way that you could draw your staircase, and this is called the profile method. So as I turn my camera view to be in parallel projection, I'm only seeing a profile of the stairs, just like your personal profile when you're turned to the side. So what I want to do with that, and darn my luck, look what I did. I put all of this work on the outside of my stairs. That's okay. Let's talk about how we can troubleshoot that in case some of you have come across that in your homework. I know a lot of people have done where they made their wall and then they didn't put their door on the inside and then they couldn't push it through, or they had some other type of geometry like a picture frame on the outside and not hanging on their wall, but they wanted to lock it all together. So how could I fix this without redrawing everything? Is there even a good answer for that? I am going to, first of all, probably, I'm trying to think of the quickest way, so I want to tell you the easiest steps in the right order. I'm going to lock this so that I'm not affecting it. So I right-clicked and I locked it. I can unlock it by unlocking it. But what that does is it should, in theory, make it so I am not allowed to move it. It says nothing selected, okay? Then I'm going to use my selection tool, and I could even use the window we talked about earlier, and it selected all of my stairs I just drew. and these boxes. So I'm going to hit Shift to get rid of the back one and Shift to get rid of that one. So now I only have a copy of my stairs. Then I'm going to hit Control C on my keyboard because this is all I have selected right now. So I'm going to say Control C, and I just know that it's copied. If I was on a Mac, I would do Command C to copy that. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And now I'm going to unlock my group. And then I'm going to double click to get in and edit it. And I'm going to edit and paste. And click that point right there. And now it's actually on my shape, or at least it should be. Let's see if it's not. It looks like it was a teeny tiny bit shy, and that's what I'm finding from the rise run of the stair. So I'm going to take this point and finish it out to the edge, and then that should complete my geometry. At least I'm hoping it does. So now if I have my select tool, let's see if I can troubleshoot and see if there's any other geometry that's missing. Oh, now this is good just for you and your homework too. So I had clicked a point thinking I snapped it to its face, but like in AutoCAD, if we're not snapped 100%, it didn't put its vertex where I needed it to complete my geometry, and in fact it's just a hair off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back 2 steps. I have to move my default tray so I can get a better view on my tools. And I'll just edit, undo, close, and edit, undo, draw a line, and edit, undo, paste. Okay, so then I'm back to square one with this and trying to figure out how to bring my geometry in again. So then if I do, I could do edit, paste, or I could do Control V or Command V. And I try to be more sure about how I want to bring this all in. Let me bring it away first and then bring it in and snap it to the endpoint. Okay, let's see if that helped me out any. It still might be a little short at the top, but I think at least now we're lined up correctly. So then when I use my select tool, yep, I see there's something off a little bit up here, and that we knew were earlier. But I think we at least got that endpoint figured out. Okay, on the edge. And then grab our selection tool. And it's still giving me a hard time. Okay. Let me see. I wonder why it is giving me a hard time. I might just have to bite the bullet and redraw it unless I can figure out a better way. It might just be thinking of this as its own shape right now. All right, gonna have to do it. Edit, undo, open. Which is why it is good that I didn't have to or don't need to draw everything. So I can't explain to you guys why it wouldn't work that way, but I can fix it fairly quickly. Undo, paste. So now that I'm in here, I'll start from the lower hand corner of this, actually draw it up on the edge. And if I come through, I do 6 inches. And make sure that it draws it. 6 inches. Oh my gosh. I've never had such trouble. Straighten it out. Okay. So come back through with the pencil tool. 6 inches. There we go. Then come over. It's interesting to me that it's highlighting pink. It makes me think maybe that shape is locked for some reason because of what I drew on the other side. But we'll give it a try. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to grab my selection tool. I have to grab both this piece and this piece, which means shift to get both of them at once. Then come to move. Then come to the corner and click. Can't move it without holding control to copy it, so I hold control, click. Then I'm going to go ahead and type in 18. Oh, asterisk 18. Okay. And then let's see. It might just not like it in this view of you not drawing every single piece of it. Okay. So let's see if that'll finish it off. And very well might just not be allowing me to do it. I did it again. Man, guys, not my night. Well, I did it right on this side, but this is making me worry too because the faces are all different colors. So let's see. Here I have the right one, which is why I thought maybe it won't let me because I have one side completely drawn. Although I was just outside of my group, which is why it didn't work again on that side. But in here I had drawn it using the copy tool and I had made it all the way to the top. And then I'm thinking what the issue is that little tiny sliver when you copy it like this. And this is just, it's a new tool that I'm learning. When you copy so many like this, you want to do one extra to close the group so that it goes past what you've drawn. So up here we just have like a little bit extra to close it out. And then it'll allow you to finish the staircase. So, and if you have 19 left, then go ahead and add an extra one to just close out the geometry at the top. That's what I did on this side using the copy. I think it would have been different if I actually drew it. Each one, it would have worked just fine. And I might, because we do have plenty of time, I might try it just to see what would work for you if you're trying it at home. So then you could simply you want to actually choose the select tool on the other side because you want the opposite to be cut out. And you can push it over to the side and click it off. And that'll give you a staircase. So they're two very valid ways of doing things. It's just one is going to give you all this extra stuff underneath, and that could be what you need if you're up against a wall, or you could do the subdivided rectangle method instead of the profile method and float the stairs using the floating combination method, or have another staircase like this but a whole bunch of different pieces. So let me go ahead and see if I edit, undo, open, and I come back around to this guy. I want to do one quick test on this. So I'm going to shift where I could lock everything. Lock, then select this, and then I'm going to hit shift again and get rid of the things I don't want. Then I'm going to control C with my keyboard, the only thing you saw was the plus by my mouse. Then I'm going to delete this out and open the group by unlocking it. Double click inside, control V, and snap it to the origin, and then come through. Hey, it worked that time. Weird. I can't even explain it. So I just went through all of the same steps, and it seems to have liked the fact that I did something different. I can't tell you what, but by copying it in, it did allow it. So I must have just been snapping to the wrong point down here that I was getting off. Instead of actually snapping to the corner, I must have just been snapping to an edge, and that's why my geometry was off. It shouldn't have left a gap. It should have been a nice clean staircase like this, so that makes me feel better about everything. Okay, so then I could push it the other way, And with the exception of the fact we started drawing stuff on that side, it gives me a clean stair and it cuts off at the top. And then we could add one to get up to our next level. Okay, so for your homework, you're going to do a profile stair, the same stair with the same information like I just did. And I'll give you that actual rubric with the cutout that I have from the website. So you're going to have the information, just a screenshot of this information. And then hopefully it works for you the first time because you end up double clicking into your group to edit it before you do it on the outside, so you can save yourself a bunch of steps. Look how fun this is. It's like an MC Escher movie now. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with the different geometry in building stairways. But this is just 2 examples of what I want you to do. I'm going to do 30 points for a profile method, 30 points for, if I click out of here, there he is, 30 points to see you do this method. So you will have to actually take your time, and you can copy the lines over a bunch of times and then copy your division lines of your rise up a bunch of times, but you're going to have to drag all the stairs up. And then I want to see one stairway separate from the one that you do just like that, kind of like mine, where you can start it a little bit doing this, or at least get one step and then do the floating stair all the way down. And you can do it as not a component or making a component, but we saw that making it into a component makes it so that it's editable all at once, saving us a ton of time. Okay? So that's the difference between components and groups. I did find out some information on dynamic components. So the information we were missing on last week when I picked a door and I was trying to adjust it, and I kept thinking, oh, it's dynamic and it should just automatically be perfect. Well, it was adjusting. I just wasn't being patient enough with it. So for this week, I've brought in a dynamic staircase. And this is why I'm saying I don't need you to do it. It's advanced. And not only is it advanced, but people have done the work for us. We're going to let them do that work. It's stairs. So as long as I checked their model and made sure that their stairs fall within my more code requirements or what's suggested. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I downloaded this one from the actual Google SketchUp warehouse. So let's just go see what it would look like if I was searching for a dynamic component. I come out to the warehouse and I type in dynamic stair. And here's a whole bunch of them. Now here's even a circular dynamic square. So some of you in 108 that are trying to figure that out possibly, you're not allowed to do a round stair? Really? Aw, that's lame. Yeah? Darn. That's a letdown. But anyway, if you were doing a spiral stair, here's a dynamic one of those. Here I think is the one that I brought in, maybe. Let me scroll down a little bit further. Here's one without handrails. Nope, here's the one I brought in. So I clicked on the model, I clicked download, and then it downloaded into my model. All right, so it says it's concrete with a handle and a bar. So then I left here because it opened up in my model. Here it was, boom. And then from there, I can get rid of some of this as I'm teaching you guys, so you can just see this stair. If I use my scale tool on this stair and I start to pull it up, I think last week I got frustrated and I was like, nothing's happening. But the reality was it was changing. It's automatically adding the steps and changing the railing based off the height that I dragged it. I don't know if you noticed it. It was very subtle to me, but the higher you get, obviously, the more you'll notice it. So it's dynamically adding acceptable risers and treads. And this is because this model was made this way. So if you check, they had, let me get to a better point. And I'm going to hold it down. I'm at a weird view, so it's trying really hard to think about it. So 6 3/4 And then the tread, which was fine. We said, 5 to 7. Treads are 11, 11/16, and we wanted 10 to 12. So this is an acceptable stair to bring into my building and use. And every time I adjust it, it just adds more and more and more. And it keeps the risers and the treads that size. So you don't have to build your own stairs in your model. You could bring in someone else's stair, but there are rules to editing dynamic components, so I suggest bringing in the best or most like your drawing that you want, because editing their stair as a component is going to be a lot more difficult than building even your own stair. So if you want to do something really specific, you might want to take the time to do that, because this has been made to do that stretching, and because of that, it gets messy when you start to edit it. I can show you what happens actually. So even just opening it up, and then if I try to move something around at all, it gets really grumpy right away. Like it'll jump to the side and then it gets locked in that position, and um, even trying to scale, like at one point when I didn't realize it was scaling, and I came through and I selected I thought maybe I have to open it up and then I have to scale it. So I selected, and I've got to get farther back for my crossing window. I selected everything, and then I went to scale, and I started scaling, and it looks okay right now, but mine that I did, it started throwing pieces everywhere or snapping back and not letting me change it. And I don't think it dynamically adjusts in the same way. But just be careful. I mean, you could paint it. That's not going to hurt anything. But see, things like this start to occur, where just pieces, chunks get left behind because they've made it dynamic, and they've also made these like how I did. They copy a piece up and over and over and over. And hmm, like to not be this railing and delete out the post kind of thing, or paint it. Every post. So you could, but just know that once you do, you want to make it the stair size you want, the dynamic size, and then you're like, okay, I'm happy with this, so I could, if something goes wrong, it's okay because it doesn't need to shrink or stretch. So then once you do make it the size you want, sure, you could come in and edit it. It's just don't do the editing before you want it. Now, you'll have to think about how stuff is made. For instance, on my screen, you can see these are all components. So they're all going to change at the same time. So whatever you do to one, you do to the others. But I believe, let's see, if you delete it, you could, if you only want that part of it, you could use that and come in and build your own rails by making a component or copy a piece of this and delete the top off of it by coming in here and using parts of their railing. But it's all up to you and how much detail you want to get into. So yeah, you could edit it, but I'd suggest making sure it's dynamically stretched to be the height that you want it before you do that. Okay. Oh, hold on. What was the last step to create thicker stairs? Wow, that was probably forever ago. 1616, Robin. Um, was it for which method? The floating method or?
Yes, that one with the really thick treads or rice.
Okay.
The one your cursor is on.
Oh, okay. So how did I create the thicker stairs? Just by using the push-pull tool. So I came in, and I think these were my components. So however I push and pull them, I just came through, and originally they were up higher, but I could push from the bottom or the top to change the size of the stairs
Okay, so it moved them all as a unit.
because they're a component.
Okay.
Okay, so for instance, if we come out and we just want to practice that one more time as a step, making something a component, because I kind of brushed through it a little bit. So if I didn't have any of these at all, now I've got all types of things going on with my stairs. And even if I just had these guys, they'll be fine for what I want to do. Okay, So if I wanted to start, weird. Sorry, I'm just trying to see why it won't let. Okay, so this shows you I made it a group and I made it a component. You could tell because of how hard it was for me to click. Now here, this is a face with a bunch of lines, so it's neither a group or a component. If I double click here, now I've taken the face and its lines and I have them all selected. I'm going to make it a group by right clicking and clicking make group. So I did that first. If it had already been a group, I could have right clicked and just gone straight to make it a component, but I wanted all of those pieces. So I made it a group. Then I could select it. Let's see if I can select it. And so it is selected, it's just hard to see, and make it a component, I believe. Yep, okay, so there I can see it was highlighted, it's just hard to see. So now it's a component and a group. And then if I come through, because I've made it a component, and I go to my selection tool, okay, so I already have it. I can select this, it is all selected, it's just hard to see. And then I click my move tool, and then I click my front endpoint, and I hit control and I click my next endpoint, and then I type shift 8, which is asterisk, and then let's just do like 7 just to get however many we want. And then from there, now that they're all components, it should work that if I come in and I double click one, it shows the whole array of the components, and anything I do to it will be done to the other. As opposed to if I had come through and I explode this, and now that it's exploded, it's no longer a group or a component, and I double click here and I make it a group, but not a component. And then I do my whole select, it's already selected, move, choose this, and let's say just for what I'm doing, I want to bring it down that far, and then I type in shift asterisk 7, enter, enter, you can do it. Oh, yeah, good catch, Caroline. So Caroline says I forgot to hold control when I moved it. So if I select it and then I do the move tool, grab a point, hold control, bring it down, click, and then I type in shift asterisk 7, enter, and yay, it did the same thing. But then when I go in and I double click this one, notice the array of the other pieces aren't there because it's not a component. So I'm only dealing with this single individual group. Okay, so that is the difference between groups and components. Please watch the dynamic components video available to you because I think they do a fun, like they show how also dynamic components have options where when you click on them or hover over them, you can get the door to swing open and you can get your cabinets to swing open and the drawer to pull out. So there's all those kind of things which are kind of beyond us, but they do that, and you can get your models to do that. We might talk more about that when we do a walkthrough of our house or a walkthrough of a couple rooms, turning those on in the views for our presentations for our final. But I'm going to go ahead and yay, I think we're going to have enough time to make you guys do the 10% part of your homework, which I feel like maybe should even be worth more for what it is. Or at least I want to talk about, because I'm going to run out of time next week if I don't talk about it this week, how we're going to start bringing in detailed drawings into CAD from SketchUp. So the two communicate with each other. I talked to a student who I had told her she could use a Mac and she had AutoCAD on her PC, so then when we were moving into SketchUp, and then I didn't think about how they have to communicate with each other, and so you're going to want both programs on the same computer because you need to go back and forth between the two. So an instance of that is I have my boathouse open. I've been playing with materials and everything. My favorite part is the cactus on the table because it matches the color of the house and it's not a flower. But it's not showing up. You can do it, cactus. There you go. It's all the colors of my house in a cactus. But anyway, so I have my house and I'm going to ask you next week to do detailed drawings of your stair or it might be all of them, but for this week's homework, we're just focusing on the mantel, stair, mantel, and cabinet. It could be and or. I'll have to decide how hard it is, but I'll let you know next week for sure. I know we're all thinking or, but when we come through to our mantel place, we had talked about how you could do parallel projection by adjusting your camera tool. To make it easier to see my fireplace mantle, I'm going to go ahead and go up to my window, layers, or manage trays default tray layers, which says it's on. It's just hiding out here in the corner. So I'm going to pull this guy up and then I'm going to look for my layers, which I'm sure are probably floating around, not even connected to this guy. Even harder to find. So let me see if I come in here to default tray and unclick it and then default tray. There we go. Sneaky workaround to get him right in the corner where I want him. And I will turn off the house layer because that has a lot going on. And then I'll turn off my windows layer because that's in my way. And I'm trying to get to my custom mantle on my fireplace. Yours is brick. I just came through and painted this part. It doesn't really matter for what we're doing if it's brick or wood, but it's easy enough. And I might show you the quick way to paint something fast without going into materials too much because I know some of you are excited about doing that, but it's not for 2 more weeks. So if I come in as closely as I can into this shot, the side profile, and I'm thinking I want to get a straighter view. Remember, I have to figure out where I am in my camera view, and you might have to play with this. I'm going to guess it's going to accept front, and it looks like it did. It just kind of moved me down a little bit. So I click the front, and then I'm going to make sure that parallel projection is on, and then zoom in. And now I am in parallel projection, so this is as flat as it possibly can be, giving me this nice kind of drawing cutout of what my actual detail of my mantle looks like. So what this allows me to do, and there's hundreds of mantles. I mean, you can download just this part of the mantle with the details on it from the SketchUp library. So this is the one I chose to put on the fireplace. Now what do I do with this information? Let's go ahead and look at my Google Drive, really my husband's Google Drive. If I go in here, I think I have some documents pulled up. Session 10, that's us. So detail drawings. Could be cabinetry. For me, this is a good picture of what I'm thinking. I want to explain to somebody how my mantle is getting put together or what it's made up of. This isn't the exact mantle, but I thought this was a good supporting document. Here's some views that you would be expected to do as you do your detail drawings. So there's side, section, front view, top view. I'm sure, have encountered these, and then it's a whole bunch of work because you have to draw all the lines by hand and measure it out. But now we already downloaded part of our fireplace and made it custom using the SketchUp warehouse. It's easy enough to come through, and once I've put it in parallel projection, so that's very similar to the detail that I want, I can export a 2D graphic. Okay, now down, just like when we imported CAD, there's an option to change the file type. And I'm going to change it to an AutoCAD file because I want to go back into AutoCAD. So then I'm going to click export, but first I'm going to make sure it's on my desktop where I'll actually find it and export it. It says AutoCAD export audit okay, okay. It wasn't telling me there was an error, so it was everything should be fine. Then I'm going to go to my desktop where my file is located, and I'm going to find that file and open it up. And I could have saved it as something that more relevant to me, as in fireplace mantle detail. I just quickly exported it to my desktop. But for organizing your files, I would suggest that you give it a nice name as to what detail you're exporting out. So we diligently wait for our Autodesk to open in the background. Continue opening. That's just telling me it was made in SketchUp. There it is, and it's all ready to go on to, if I've created that 8.5 by 11 sheet piece of paper, it can go on that one. Now this one it automatically defaults into a know nothing drawing file, okay? So remember, do not start drawing on top of this. It doesn't have the unit set up. It doesn't have any of my paper space set up. I want to copy this into an existing drawing or possibly a drawing template that has my architectural unit set up and has my layouts available to me. So I'm going to copy the relevant pieces. My gosh, there's so much stuff. And I'm going to right click, clipboard, copy. And let's see if I go to, hey, maybe it was on my desktop. Did I have a boathouse? Oh, perfect. This is from a while ago, I think. I don't think this is my nice boathouse drawing. This is just a walls one, but it does have the unit set up. So I'm going to pretend this is your boathouse drawing, okay? Then I'm going to right click clipboard, paste, and there it is. It comes in. So then if I was in my layout and I have my title block on the side, I'll come into here and find my detail. Now details are usually done, a detail like this, at 3/4 of an inch or 1 1/2 inch. It depends on how much you're trying to fit on a sheet of paper. If you want to do this one and the side view and the top view, it could possibly all fit on here. It's kind of up to you to figure that out by using your scale. So if I'm down here for a detailed drawing, our standard scale is going to be about 3/4 inch to 1 inch. So here's 3/4. Seems really small, but if I need it to fit on an 8.5 by 11, it's not bad. It doesn't seem bad, but imagine dimensions. If you have a trillion dimensions on here, it's still pretty small. So I like the 1 1/2 inch is a nice size to still allow me to do dimensions later and come in and do my work and have it print at a good size. So back in here is where it now, unfortunately, it didn't import every single line, but I think this is a pretty good start for what we're doing, to not have to come in and figure out these angles of everything. And then we can just use AutoCAD and I don't have anything set up in this drawing, but we would go through and I'm going to have to give you special dimensions that are nice and play nice with your drawings. We would go through and dimension the different pieces out and pull out our leader lines and label it. And we probably would do that in paper space. I'm just trying to give you an idea of how we'd make it into a detailed drawing. And then we would end up giving it to our clients by having all of this information ready with our title block to go. So how it really helps is that SketchUp has done so much work for you. People have created hundreds of types of side profiles like this. You can combine and edit, and then you just bring it into CAD and dimension it, and you are ready to give it to somebody who actually does mill work as a really good jumping off point for them to get the details that you're hoping to have in your drawings. So this is a nice tool, going backwards from SketchUp into AutoCAD. For your homework this week, because we made it this far, I'm not expecting any dimensions or anything. I want you to send a drawing file, and now I can post the actual homework rubric because I didn't know if we'd make it this far. Just send a drawing file or your boathouse file that has this detail in your model space, just with a box around it and then a title that says detail. So I'm expecting to see something like this. See if I can get in my box. A box that gives me an idea where it is because it's so tiny on everything. So a box and then text, and I don't care what size text, just something pointing me to the fact that you actually did import your drawing, and it's going to be tiny in here because this is the default text with this random drawing. So there's my detail, I boxed it in, and I said that here's the detail that I was able to import from SketchUp. I will be looking to make sure that you got it in parallel projection. So if it's accurately in parallel projection when you export, I'll be able to measure from one edge to the other, and that should be the true distance in AutoCAD that I measure from one edge to the other. So there is a way for me to check it. Let's see what happens if I was to export it wrong. I'm not used to exporting things without going through all those steps. So let me see if for some reason you were unable to figure out the parallel projection. So if I come up into here and I turn parallel projection off, that makes it 3D again, and then I'm not looking at the actual edge as a flat piece of paper, as close to flat as SketchUp can get it. If I come in and readjust my drawing, yeah, I really like those drawers. Nope. Came in, I colored, no, I don't even think I colored it. I think it came in exactly, I think I changed the gray, but other than that, I know SketchUp has so many options, so many good pieces of furniture people have already done. That's why I'm saying look in the models before you do your designs, because treat it like you're going furniture shopping. Treat it like you're searching the web for items. A lot of them will have the manufacturers that make them. Okay, so if I was to export it on a corner, what would happen? My understanding is that most of the drawings I've done, it exports true to whatever's in the viewer. So it's going to do a 3D drawing like this. So let's see if we export this. Export to graphic. And we do AutoCAD DWF file. It's already set up, DWG. And I'm going to say corner view and export. Okay. Then I'm going to close this guy down. And I'll find my corner view drawing and open it. Continue opening it. It's just telling me it was made in SketchUp. And sure enough, there I have a line drawing on my 3D. Now, it is cool. And this is what I was thinking for people who do like to hand draft things. You could get a good basis of a sketch to come in and just have a nice black line, or you could select all of your lines and put them on a, oh look, it comes in with it. It brings in its layers, just like when AutoCAD takes out its layers. So I'll choose profile edges, and then I'll come in and maybe do select colors and pick a lighter gray, okay, as an underlayer, and then go into my layout. And I didn't see an adjustment. Yes, it should be to scale, just like our section detail came in. It comes in at the actual, that's my perception of it anyway. At least when I did the parallel projection, yes. So we don't have our units turned on. Let's do units. Good. I'm glad all of Gabe's dreams have come true. Architectural, and then I'll go ahead and try my linear. Why didn't it change? Drawing utilities, units, architectural, okay. It's struggling. Oh, I don't want that. I want a line. That's interesting too. I never thought of doing that. I don't know. For some reason, my units aren't adjusting, and I know that's not inches. So let me try one more time. Architectural. Yeah. Weird. We're going to copy this then. Copy it. Come into here. And this one's struggling too. Let me see. Paste. But here you can see the scale of the wall. So it looks like it's not, or at least when I copied it over, it's not coming in. Like this, I know, yeah, that's a good question though, but it was earlier. I want to make sure that it's not just going to not copying it into a nicer drawing. Hmm, that's a great point. Because if not, then we'd have to just figure out our scale factor, and then we would scale it up or down. So I'll just have to write that into the next class. But for now, just I will say no, that this didn't come into scale, obviously. Here's a wall, and that's the walls we imported last week. And then here is the drawing that we brought in, and here's our detailed drawing. But I'm just wondering though, because I know that I got it to work for me earlier today when I was doing it in the nice boathouse drawing. So I don't know if it's just because it's not these very well done models spaces that I'm working in. Hold on. I know that if you export your plan, because you can export a floor plan and it'll be in scale going back and forth between the two. I just don't know if when you're completely not in parallel projection, if that's accurate or not. So I'll do some research on that for you guys because I usually just use it for floor plans, but it's easy enough to research. Hold on, I'm going to check the chat really quick. Nope. Not hearing me. Oh, sorry. Okay. So it looks like Janice figured it out. I'm going to pause now. So still do everything I said to do on the detail. Go ahead and put it in your boathouse drawing. Put it in a box, call it detail. I just want to make sure you get the idea of going backwards. You're exporting to CAD. You copy it in a drawing, bring it into a drawing you're working in. So that's half the battle right there. And then we're going to go ahead and talk about homework questions because I know some people still have some. So anything that you've been struggling specifically with, go ahead and you can just talk if you want to, or you can type in the chat.
How do you get the picture on the wall without putting it through the wall and making sure it's really touching the wall?
All right, let's go ahead and use you as an example then. It's so weird. I don't know why my audio is like oh, I know how. Hold on. I'm going to adjust my audio to be, Go ahead and say something again, Robin.
Okay.
No, still not working. Oh well, I can hear you, but
Okay.
let's see. I'm going to give you my screen then and make you the presenter.
Oh, I don't know if I'll be able to pull mine up and not crash everything, but I'll try.
Okay. Did you understand what I was saying about possibly separating it into different models? I was just thinking if you aren't doing, are you in 108, Robin? I always forget.
No,
Okay,
no.
so since you're not in 108, if you just want to do individual rooms, because we're just going to focus on like our elevations of a room as opposed to finishing a complete model for our class. So if you wanted to just do a model with your living room furniture and a model with your kitchen furniture or your bath and your bedroom, so you don't have so many pieces, I don't know if it's enough to help you not crash,
Okay.
but
It's still trying to load, so I don't even know if it's going to
well, we could.
open with me in GoToMeeting. When I was in GoToMeeting earlier, when I first pulled it up, it was like, you need to shut down other things or I'm not going to work.
Okay. Well, let's see.
It's thinking about it here. Let me see.
If it
Okay.
does crash
Okay.
while you're figuring it out in the background, I had talked to multiple people about this, but if you go to wetransfer.com, I don't know how many of you use this website. There's Robin's stuff. It's free to take me to free. And here's your terms and conditions. I agree. Add files. So you can send up to 2 gigs over the internet without using a Dropbox. So when you have an email issue, like some of you have wanted to email me your model so I could look at them without submitting them, and you want to send me a big file, all you do is you would add your file from my desktop. I would just I want to do this boathouse open. I put my friend's email, which would be Robin, and then I put my email and then what I'm saying about the transfer, and I click transfer and it sends it. And I'll get it because that's a lot of size. So anything too big for email, you can send for free using this website, and then I'll be able to receive it. Or for instance, if hers crashes, she could send it that way, and then we could open it on my computer. Okay, so for now, I'll go back and look at Robin's space. So is it snapped now to the wall, or it's still that piece of artwork?
Well, yeah, I think it's,
Yeah.
oh, no, see,
Oh,
it's not quite there, is it?
okay. So let's see if I can do any better for you. Sometimes there really is just bad models, but can you give me the control? We'll see if
How do
that's
I do
all
that?
even slower, I'm sure.
How can I do that?
It's usually under where the share screen is. It says share my mouse.
Hmm. Well, when I clicked on share my screen, that box went away, so
Your go-to meeting is gone?
no, oh, here.
It should just be your go-to meeting bar that has under screen, I'm assuming. I always say that. I can't see it on your side, but that's what people
Okay,
have said.
here. I have to click on screen. Change presenter, share keyboard with Allison. Okay.
Okay. So now I can have the controls. I'll take it nice and slow so it doesn't have a heart attack on us. The slowest zoom. I'm zooming right now. You just can't tell. I'm trying to anyway. So I don't know why, but it's not letting me use my
Oh,
zoom.
there. Now it's telling me you have controls, so
Hey, can you zoom in a little bit?
I can try. Let's see.
Okay. Then, all right.
Nope.
So what I would try doing is, let me see if I can get the controls back. I think I just take them if you stop moving. Um, then I select this item and I want to use my, so the issue is that it doesn't seem like it has any good hard corners, seems to be our issue that you're experiencing with it. So I guess what I would try to do is, I don't know, I know I told you Aaron's trick to it, so oh, don't do it, don't freeze on me. Okay, so that gives me on face in group is a good point. Let's see. Because I would want to make sure I'm on face in the group, so that's what I have selected. And then I would want to snap it to on, it should say on face as well, which for some reason it seems like it is snapped on the wall, but we'll see in a second if it actually was. I really would like a true corner to tell me where I am. So let me move it out. Okay, so the red axis says that it is, I think for some reason that's like I did end up snapping it somehow, but we'll see. So it is far away still. So let's do a view that lets us know how far away. So if we're looking at it this way, let's do view, camera, standard views, top, and then let's do see parallel projection from here. There you go.
Hmm.
Okay, so then I can find an endpoint and try to snap that possibly to the edge there. So that might be one way if you make it flat. So then you can tell where your actual wall is at.
Okay.
So I went to top view and then I did parallel projection with my camera and checked it to on.
Okay.
I'll uncheck it and then I'm in normal view and then it's at the top of the wall, but now we can move it down the axis of that red axis and it should just, or blue axis actually. And that's where I
That was
think,
the other problem I had too, is then if one of the wall arts was too high on the wall and then I wanted to bring it down, it kept pulling it away from the wall again.
so that's where just now I hit the keyboard, I hit the down button and you see how it snapped to that blue axis
Okay.
and it's dragging nice and straight. If I hit escape and I started to move it down, it might work now because it's snapped to the wall, so it already wants to do that. Okay, so yeah, it looks like it automatically knows because we snapped it to that edge. So I think it was just not working for you because it wasn't clicked to the wall. You know what I mean? Like, or it was,
Right, right.
okay, so
Yes,
that
that makes
helps
sense.
that.
There's my door. I could never get to, it
Oh,
wouldn't do
good.
it.
While we're in
So
here, let's give it a try. So I'm sure you've already tried this, but so you
I
are,
could never, yeah. Well, it took me forever. The trouble you had with those stairs, the
uh-huh.
stairs on the wall, that's the trouble I had even with just creating the store. I couldn't use guidelines. I finally used the pencil tool and had to do that, and then it kept not clicking right, so I couldn't form a face, so I couldn't push the door, and
So your door is not, it's not on this face. So can you tell that? Like right now I have all the dots and you can see
mm-hmm,
the face of your wall and your door is either under it or over it. So let's say we delete this face. Okay, so it turns out your door was not even on that face to begin with. So it was kind of what I was talking about where once I got into the group I saw, but then it is on a face of something out here. So it's almost like there's, if I delete that, what am I deleting? Let's do a view and see if it's off at all. So your walls are in a group, your door is not in the group. Do you see that?
mm-hmm.
Okay, so in order to push through that wall, you'd actually have to be in that group. So if I delete these for now, and even this baseline, and then I double click into the group, and then from there, I want to make sure I am clicked into here where the intersection is. And well, that was weird. It said something weird there. Undo line. It said outside of active. Endpoint on outside active. Okay. Well, I'll just type 4 inches just in case. And then I will draw up 80 inches over on the, okay, so here's another thing. Let's see if we can get our green axis right. Okay, 36 inches. I made sure. That is way more than 36 inches. Okay, 36 inches. No, you won't.
Uh-oh. Mm.
All right, that's even more than 36 inches. Okay, so let's see. 36 inches. I don't know why it's doing that. No,
At,
definitely.
at one point, I had, if you looked at it from above, it was like the line wasn't even on the wall. It came out and
I
it
think
went back.
I
I'm
think
telling you, it was a nightmare.
I think Caroline's right. It is just the angle. That is in fact 36 inches because I just measured it. Then down 80 inches. Okay, so then let's see. So for some reason, even though you're in here, I'm guessing that the issue is the point I'm snapping to. You know what I mean? Like this line in the corner over here.
Hmm.
I don't think that it's an actual straight point down here. So we're drawing all of those lines based off of it, and it's creating chaos for us. Gosh, you have a lot of stuff in there. So then you have a door on the other side. Is that correct?
My my door into my bedroom, I didn't have any trouble with whatsoever. I don't know how that extra line got in there. That wasn't there originally, but I kept undoing and undoing, so
So
after an hour, it got kind of messy.
yeah. So it looks like, yeah, you had a door within a door within a door within a wall. So I think in that case, it really was just, it would have been better to just redraw your walls straight, and I would have drawn them outside of this model, like no, figured out the dimension that I want to do so that I could make sure it was flat. I would have started in another SketchUp drawing, just blank space, and said I need it to be this wide, drawn the walls, made them a group so I knew they were straight, and brought them back in so I knew they wouldn't snap to anything else.
These walls were the walls from AutoCAD
Hmm.
that we imported in. You showed us how to import in the walls, and then
Mm-hmm.
I brought them into this drawing after I imported them into a plain SketchUp document.
Okay.
And I matched up the axes, and then I brought it in here.
So let's
So
see.
shouldn't that have been right then?
Well, let's see. If I draw a line here, it should have been. I haven't been able to grade your first homework assignment because I haven't had a computer with 2016 on it because they took my computer to fix it. But I mean, here is where I'd have a sign of if this was actually on the blue axis, which it is. So it should be straight, but it just looks like somehow, and it's weird that you had your door inside your wall too. That's really odd to me. um, how you ever would have been able to create it that way. But I don't know. It's a little bit of a conundrum, like this corner coming out more here. That's
Mm-hmm.
strange. So if you had brought it in correctly, and I'll check your homework tomorrow is when I'm grading those first ones. Then I wish there was a way to lock. We'll wait. One, two. No, I always wanted to lock the floor, but for some reason I can't get it to lock.
Yeah, because I kept pulling the floor up. When I kept trying to push through the door, it kept pulling up the
Hmm.
floor.
You could hide the floor, but that would be kind of hard to understand if you're not used to it being gone. So it should have been fine, but it might be just as well to go through and yeah, somewhere along the way you lost the whole thickness of your wall and everything. So
Okay.
I don't have a great answer for this one. And here's like the intersection with the floor, but I'd be afraid to make sure that that's the exact point I want. I guess what I would do is just to be safe instead of doing what I'm doing now, because this could not be right, even though it looks right now. Although it looks really right. It does. I just wouldn't want to trust it. Like I said, I just create a 4 inch by whatever you measure this to be across or whatever it said in the original drawing. I'd create that wall and I'd bring it back in, or I'd even cut the door out in the other, like in a separate drawing if it's really giving you that much trouble, and then I'd just paste it into place in this drawing.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Do you want me to, I just won't do anything else to it. Let me
Okay.
check the chat. Okay. Did anyone else besides Robin have a question on something? I feel like we got to cover our good stuff about the geometry and rotating and some copying and pasting. That will be helpful to you guys. Any big problems? Doesn't sound like any big problems. Hold on one second before anyone goes anywhere. I'm just going to record final attendance. And good thing I did because some of you came in either late or... So yay, I'm not going to mark you out. Okay. I don't hear any questions. So I am going to go ahead and end this session, and then tomorrow I will put on the accurate quiz, and then I will also have an updated rubric for you. But we did cover all the homework in this video. It's the profile stair, the subdivided rectangle stair, and then the floating stair. And I want them all separate next to each other in the same drawing, kind of like how I had it. And then I'd like you to go into your boathouse, and we all have the fireplace, no matter if you're in my class or in Cheryl's as well, and do the parallel projection and export that detail into your boathouse drawing. And then send me that with some type of box around it to let me know that you did that as a drawing file. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and end the class now and move on to kitchen and bath. Thank you, everyone. Oh, wait, Robin has a question. Go ahead, Robin.
I had a question, Jen.
Oh, Janice?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Janice.
I typed something, but you may not have gotten it. I cannot get some of my dining room chairs on one side. They just sit on top. They won't go under. So I've got 3 chairs that are sitting on the table,
Okay.
not under it.
All right. I think using that tool that I showed you today on screen, using Move, where you select the item, we'll just use, if we've got Robin up here. If we select the group of your chair, and then we select Move, and then we pick a nice endpoint like this, or we pick a good corner. Well, really it should be fine for going up and down. That's more for rotating. But if you pick a corner, and you got to make sure it's an actual endpoint. So it could be a midpoint, or how it says on edge, that's even fine. But when I'm up here and it just didn't say anything for a minute, we don't want that. We don't want this space where it says from point. We want a corner or an edge.
Okay.
So then if you find a corner or an edge, and it might be trickier in different spots, not a face. I'll wait until I find an edge and maybe even zoom in. And let me save it. Or an endpoint, that works too. If you can kind of come down from the corner and find a corner of the chair. Or just go ahead.
I've tried that. I noticed it didn't work.
Okay. Well, make sure once you grab it, you pull up, and you can't see the blue line because the box is actually blue. But it is turning blue when I pull it up. So right now it's not working for me, but if I push the up key on my keyboard, it snaps to that blue line. So you might try that too. So right now it's stuck to the, Robin's gonna be like, you moved my desk. But that moved it up only because I pushed the up arrow, and then if I grab it again and I move it, and it could be almost from any point, but I push the down arrow, it moves it straight, it snaps straight down. See that pink line and how it's moving nice and down?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Excuse me.
Okay, so hopefully that will work for you. If not, go ahead and email me.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Someone have one more thing? I heard a chirp.
Can you hear me?
I can kind of hear you.
I asked a question about changing the color of like a chair that I brought in.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to change the color of a rug, and I haven't been real successful in doing that. Do I have to explode it first and then make it? I've just thought if I double clicked it, that it would be edit and I could change the color, but it doesn't.
It should be.
Properly.
It should be that simple. You should just be able to double click, and it might be a bunch of double clicks. Okay, so there's all these pieces. It's always double click, double click. So I double clicked in, then I double click till I see it white, then I double click again till I get just on the table, then I double click till I'm on the top, then I double click until the face is highlighted blue, and that's when you're allowed to paint it.
Paint the top of that and let me see it.
All right, let's see.
At the top of that desk.
Okay.
Okay, so you have, but when I do the rug, it does have a ring around the rug. So maybe I should just keep trying to double click on it and see if it gets smaller because it's under a table.
Is it So you brought in a rug and you want to change it to just be a solid color? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I want to change the color of a rug because I'm trying to work this whole thing so it looks good when it's all done instead of all this random stuff.
Okay. Well, here's my suggestion to you guys I was thinking about the other day. If you have a question and you think it's easier to show me, do you guys have the option on your side to record or no?
Well, I've got them on two different computers. I've got my
Like in
one.
GoToMeeting. Do you guys as students in the lab have a record button?
I don't know.
Hmm. Darn, because I was going to have you guys record your questions and then you could send them to me via WeTransfer and I could see what was actually happening. If you can think of a way to do that. Robin just took away her screen. She doesn't want me moving her stuff anymore. But yeah, as far as your rug, if you brought it in and you're just trying to change the color, it should be as easy. Hey, a real person. Okay, so that's cool. I'd have to give you the screen really quick. I don't have a ton of time because my next class is at 7:30, so it's starting any second, but they're behind me and they'll be okay. What about Tim? So, hold on. If I make it Janice or Joanne.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll try it.
Okay.
I'll keep trying to mess with it.
Okay, well, yeah, keep I mean, sometimes it's a billion double clicks. I'm not even kidding. It can be a ton. So
That's
give that a try. And if not, um, when we get to materials, which will be in 2 weeks, I know you're working on a project right now. So if we need to, maybe tomorrow if you have some time.
okay.
But we'll talk about even how to apply like an actual rug pattern and all of that information. So we'll get there. But for
Okay.
now, we can set up a time tomorrow. All
All
right,
righty.
everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night. Bye, guys. See the rest of you later. Exit meeting.